What's up, y'all? It's Chris here to do last vid of the year. Been a great year in combat sports, both boxing and MMA. One of the best for both in a long time, of all time, at least in my lifetime. So here to do my year-end quote-unquote awards, basically just my opinion on some of the best things I saw this year in MMA. I already did a boxing vid like this with my boy Calix Boxing, which is on the channel. So if you missed that, you can go and check that out. As far as MMA, I wanted to wait till this past weekend with UFC 168 because I expected some big things and exciting things to go down, and for the most part it was. With that said, I thought UFC 168 was the card of the year in MMA. Now, there were a lot of good cards. There was a Brazil Tough Ultimate Fighter, I think it was, finale. Nogueira and Verdum headlined. That card had almost all stoppages. That was a great card, but not a lot of big names on it. You also had UFC 164, main evented by Anthony Pettis, Ben Henderson, 166, Kane JDS3, and 167, GSP Hendricks. But I thought 168, as far as the pay-per-view, was really good. You had 3 first-round stoppages to kick it off. You had Rousey Tate, which exceeded expectations by far. And, of course, you had the unfortunate ending in Weidman Silva, too, but still something that left fans with a lot to talk about, with a completely unexpected ending. So UFC 168 was my pay-per-view of the year, or my UFC event of the year, or MMA event of the year, I guess you would say, by default. As far as submission of the year, there weren't a lot of really crazy, great, spectacular submissions like there have been in the past. So I go with Anthony Pettis submitting Ben Henderson. Nobody expected it. He won the title. And it was, when it took place, I didn't even see it happen till the replay. So just because of the significance of it more so than anything else, Pettis Henderson submission of the year. As far as knockout of the year, so many great contenders. I mean, Weidman Silva won. It depends. There's some that are more significant than others, or there's some that were just spectacular in nature. Shogun destroying James Tahuna not too long back. Uriah Hall with that spin kick on Adam Cell in The Ultimate Fighter. Vitor Belfort with 3 knockouts via head kick. Bigfoot knocking out Alistair Overeem, just crushed him against the cage. Mark Hunt knocking out Stefan Struve. Doug Marshall in Bellator putting Brett Cooper through the mat, through the canvas. Douglas Lima knocking out Ben Saunders in Bellator. And, of course, Demetrius Johnson knocking out Joseph Benavidez on Fox, UFC on Fox 9. Personally, I think Weidman Silva was the most significant, but on just something that blew my mind, gotta go with Uriah Hall, Adam Cella on The Ultimate Fighter. I know Adam Cella, as far as an opponent, is not much, but Uriah Hall, I mean, put the guy on the map. He hasn't really lived up to that potential just yet, but just an amazing move. And we've seen a couple of those similar head kick KOs since with Vitor Belfort and JDS against Mark Hunt, and more guys trying that technique as well. Not that Renan Barão did it in the past against Terry Edom, but Uriah Hall, man, just an amazing knockout. Still stands out in my mind. Let's see. Fighter of the year. I would go with, got Demetrius Johnson, defended his title 3 times, stopped all 3 opponents. Vitor Belfort, 3 wins, 3 knockouts, including being the first guy to stop Dan Henderson. Uriah Faber, 4 wins, 3 by stoppage. And then you could go with champs. Anthony Pettis, Cain Velasquez, Chris Weidman, and Ronda Rousey all went 2-0. I think you could make a strong case for Demetrius Johnson, but I'd go with Vitor. Even if he is TRT'd up out of his mind, 3 wins, 3 head kick knockouts essentially, and he stopped Dan Henderson, cementing himself as the #1 contender for Chris Weidman's middleweight title. Great year, great resurgent year for people for years have been wanting to see the quote-unquote old Vitor, and this new current version is about as close as we've seen since Vitor first emerged on MMA UFC. So Vitor Belfort fighter there in my opinion. And let's see, I guess last up, in my opinion, worst fight or most disappointing fight. Actually, most disappointing fight, I have a draw. GSP Diaz. Diaz, my number one fighter, favorite fighter. Just disappointing because it was so one-sided. I expected it to be somewhat, but just the way the fight played out, particularly on the ground, just disappointing fight for me. And also, Jose Aldo versus Korean Zombie. Expected that to be a barn burner war, and it wasn't. And then, of course, it had the unfortunate ending with Zombie throwing out his shoulder, so that fight was disappointing. But the worst fight, as far as like fights that were just terrible, I mean, there's a lot of shitty fights, but ones that stood out in my mind just not having much happen at all. Rogerio Nogueira and Rashad Evans, that fight freaking sucked, dude. That was one of, and it was on pay-per-view. I was at the bar, so you're kind of stuck watching. That fight was god-awful. Jake Shields, Tyrone Woodley. Jake Shields, Damian Maia as well. Those fights both sucked. And Roy McDonald, Jake Ellenberger. Ellenberger didn't bring it, and Roy McDonald just kind of fought safe to get a win. That fight sucked as well. But I think Rogerio Nogueira, Rashad Evans takes the cake for me. That fight was awful. I would never watch that fight again. I wouldn't say ever, but not unless I was forced to, or there was some kind of offer put on the table where it would be rewarding to me to rewatch that awful, awful fight. As far as 2014, I'd be shocked if it's as good as this year has been in the sport, but I am looking forward to the welterweight division in the UFC. Now the GSP is on the shelf. I think the division becomes a lot more interesting, a lot of interesting matchups to be made, including the title fight between Hendricks and Lawler. And with that said, I hope that my boy Nick Diaz steps back in the octagon. I think he can make a mark still in that division without GSP around. Plus, I always like watching the fights of my favorite fighter win or lose. And aside from that, hope to see a rematch between John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson. First fight was great. We'd love to see a rematch. And kind of want to see Conor McGregor get in there. See if he could back up all the big talk. Speaking of, fight of the year. Can't believe I overlooked it. I guess I should save the best for last, and that would be the best category in my opinion because there were some amazing fights this year. As far as candidates for fight of the year, Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate 2. In Bellator, Alexander Shlemenko, Brett Cooper was a fun fight. Johnny Hendricks, Carlos Condit was a really good fight. Took place earlier in the year. Dennis Bermudez, Matt Grice, another fight that took place earlier in the year, but real barn burner, three-round war. And then, of course, ones that really stand out. Vanderlei Silva, Brian Stan, absolute slugfest for as long as it lasted. Diego Sanchez, Gilbert Melendez, a lot of people's favorite. Mark Hunt versus Antonio Bigfoot Silva, took place not too long ago. An absolute 5-round heavyweight classic, just absolute war. Michael Chandler, Eddie Alvarez 2 in Bellator, that was a really, really good fight and a rematch. Didn't live up to the first one, not quite, but still really, really good fight. And of course, John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson, and that would be my winner. I think that Sanchez, Melendez, Hunt, Bigfoot, probably more entertaining as overall just entertaining brawl slugfest. But personally, I think if you take on the level, the importance of Jones Gustafsson and the expectations, most people thought Jones was just going to have an easy win. Gustafsson pushed him to his limit. Jones had to, come back late to win that fight to get the decision by taking over in the late rounds, the late 4th and 5th round. So we had to see him push where he hadn't been before, and he came through, and I am looking forward to a rematch hopefully in 2013. So Jones Gustafsson, my fight of the year. Anyways, what are your guys' thoughts on this year? Any of the things I mentioned? What do you have for knockout of the year, fighter of the year, fight of the year, your favorite event, and fight if you want to talk about which one you hated the most or most disappointed to, and what you're looking forward to or would hope to see in 2014. All right, that's it for now. Links to Twitter and Facebook in the information on the video. As always, until next time, I'm out.